Chapter 19. Oh my God, Augie said softly. Could it really get out through that little hole? I stepped forward, almost climbing right into the box, and thrust my arm through the mesh. It pushed aside and my arm sank through the mesh up to my elbow. I needed proof, to see with my own eyes what I already knew. It's gone, Augie exclaimed. Gone. No, it isn't, I said, shaking my head. Of course it is, Augie said, sounding hysterical. Can't you see it isn't in the box? It's gone. I know it isn't in the box, I bellowed back. Not blind. I just mean it isn't gone. It's here. Somewhere in my bedroom. In here? Augie said, looking around. He looked like that thought unnerved him more than the fact that the snake was gone. I nodded. We have to search for it. We? Us? You and me? Who else? I asked. How about your father? Augie asked. He's on his way to work right now, but even if I could reach him, he couldn't leave work to help us. Then your sister. Has she left for work yet? Remember she's been sleeping at her friend's place the past 2 nights? Anyway, if she knew the snake was loose somewhere in the house, she'd run out the front door screaming at the top of her lungs. There has to be somebody who can help us, Augie snapped. There has to be. Like who? What do you think we can do? Call the police or fire department or ambulance? No, of course not. But there has to be somebody. How about Reptile World? They're not even open yet. And even if they were, do you think they'd send somebody halfway across the city to help us? It's just you and me. We have to find it. But where? Here in my bedroom. It has to be here. It was in the pen when I went to bed last night, and my door was closed all night, so it has to be in my room, I reasoned. Thank goodness my father had made me close my door the past 2 nights. It could be somewhere else, Augie said. Your door was open when I followed you upstairs. It could have gotten out then. It couldn't have, I insisted. I was just downstairs for a few seconds, and we would have seen it if it tried to go downstairs. But what about another room up here? Augie asked. I took a few quick steps out to the doorway of my bedroom and peered down the hall. My father's door was open, but my sister's was closed. If the boa had gotten out, at least it hadn't gotten in her room. I stepped back into my room and closed the door, sealing me, Augie, and the snake in, I hoped. We'll start here in my room, and if we don't find it, we'll look in my father's room. And if we don't find it there, we'll search the rest of the house, I said. And if we don't find it there, if we just plain don't find it, we have to find it. I can just imagine what my father will say, and my sister too, if we don't. She'll kill me. That's not the biggest problem, Augie said. What do you mean? I'm thinking about what's going to happen at school. I still don't understand, I said. You, me, we've taken money from hundreds of kids to buy a snake for Mr. Johnston. If we don't show up with a snake or their money, they're going to kill us. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe they'll understand. I'm sure some of them will understand, Augie said, and others will just understand that they want to get in line to take turns kicking our butts. I swallowed hard. I thought about what Frankie had said to me. I could picture him and a couple of his friends letting us know exactly how they felt about things. Maybe we better start looking. There was a large pile of stuff on the floor in the center of my room. Everything had been taken out of my closet and dumped. Drawers had been opened and emptied, the contents added to the growing pile. Pens and cages had been moved away from the walls so nothing could hide behind them. Each time I moved a cage, I checked it carefully. I wanted to make sure that the latch was in place, sealing the animals in safely. I didn't want the boa to be feeding on any of my pets. To a boa, they were just food. Well, that's it. We're officially late, Augie said, pointing at the clock on my wall. We'd agreed it was better to arrive late with the snake than on time without it. Actually, I'd pretty well decided that if we couldn't find the snake, I was never going to school again. I've got to use the phone, Augie said as he left my room and started down the stairs. Who are you going to call? I yelled out. The school. The school? Why are you calling the school? He didn't answer me. Maybe he hadn't heard my question. I slammed my bedroom door behind me and hurried down the stairs after him. Why are you calling? Augie put a finger to his lips to silence me. He was holding the phone. Hello? Is this the office person you call about children being late? Augie asked with an accent. It was his father's accent and voice. My boy Augie will not be in this morning. He's home taking care of some snake, Augie said. There was silence while he listened to the response on the other end. Yes, it is nice of him and that Ricky boy to raise the money. Nice boys is what they are. Honest, too, and smart. Again, Augie listened to a reply I couldn't hear. That's so nice of you, he said, continuing to sound like his father. And you sound like a nice lady. Where do you do your clothes shopping? You should drop by my store. It's on Rogers Road. You come by and I'll give you a deal. 10%. No, make that 15% off the list price. I'll give you such a deal. Augie grinned broadly as he waited for her reply. Oh, and I forgot to mention, his friend Ricky, his papa asked me to tell you his son would be late as well. The two of them are here with me in the back of the store. Augie nodded. Yes, I know his father should have called, but you know he's a single parent. It's hard for him to do everything. The boys will be there in time for the assembly. I may even come in myself. And remember, come by the store and I'll give you such a good deal. Goodbye. Augie deposited the phone back in the cradle. There, that gives us a little more time. Let's get back to looking. We rushed back upstairs to my room. I don't even think it's in here, Augie said. We haven't looked every place. Help me move the bookshelf so we can look behind it. Augie and I muscled it away from the wall, a few books dropping as the shelf skidded across the floor. I looked behind it. Nothing but dust. Do you think it could be in there? Augie said, pointing to Ollie's large pen. Do snakes burrow down in sand? I'm not sure. Maybe. I came forward until I was standing beside Augie, looking down in the sand. I don't see anything, at least on the surface. I looked over at Ollie. He was in the water, only his eyes above the waterline staring at me. I didn't like the way he was looking back at me. Maybe if you dig into the sand, it's just below the surface, Augie suggested. I needed something to move aside the sand. I reached out to the pile in the center of the floor and grabbed the coat hanger. With the end of it, I started to probe the sand. I began at the end farthest away from the water and Ollie and moved in that direction. It was funny, but I had mixed feelings about the snake being in there. Obviously, I wanted to find the snake, but I almost hoped it wouldn't jump out at me. It's not in here, I said with a sigh of both relief and disappointment. Actually, I didn't think it would be, Augie said. You didn't? Why had he suggested it then? I just figured that if it had gotten into the alligator pen, it would have eaten Ollie. He had a point there. A 6-foot boa could eat an alligator the size of Ollie. So I guess it isn't in your room. Where do we search next? We'll start up here in my father's room. If we don't find it there, we go to the main floor. And if we have no luck there, we'll go into the basement. That'll take forever, Augie said. It better not. We have to find it before my father and sister get home tonight. Really? We have to find it before 1 o'clock. I only got us excused from school until then. If we don't show by then, we have to call the school and make some sort of excuse. If not, everybody will be going to the gym for the assembly. My stomach did a flip. I could just imagine everybody in there sitting, squirming, talking, laughing, and waiting for us to go up on stage with the snake, and then not showing up. Listen, we don't have time to look everywhere. We have to think this through, Augie said. Let's just sit down for a minute. We don't have time to sit down, I protested. The way I see it, we don't have time not to think it through. Tell me about boa constrictors. I need more information so I can figure out where it went. I don't have time to give you a science lesson, Augie. We have to look for the snake. I'm not talking a science lesson. I'm talking about some basic facts. Augie pulled out the chair from my desk and sat down. Now, boas like to climb, right? Yeah, of course. They hang out in trees. Good. That's one piece of information. We should make sure to look high before we look low. They also can get through very small spaces, judging by the size of the hole he escaped through. He could get through a hole even smaller than that, I said. More good information. Now, how long can it go without food and water? Augie asked. It had just eaten when we picked it up on Saturday, so it can go for a week or 2, or even 3 without eating, I explained. And drinking? I'm not really sure, but I think only a few days at most. Good. That might be the secret to catching it, Augie said. Maybe what we have to do is build some sort of snake trap. You're good with wood and tools, baited with pans of water. We'll put them in different parts of the house and then wait for the snake to come out. That could take days. We don't have days. We don't even have hours, I moaned. Okay, so that won't help us today, but it will help us eventually if nothing else works, Augie said. He suddenly stood up and walked over to the snake's pen. He then climbed inside and stood in the middle of the box. What are you doing? I demanded. Thinking like a snake. I just need more information. More information? Yeah. How do you expect me to think like a snake if I don't know enough about them? Tell me all you know about boa constrictors. Just anything you can think of. This is crazy, I exclaimed. Maybe. Just tell me things. There was no point in arguing. I didn't have a better idea. They're reptiles. They're carnivores. They only eat meat. This was stupid. Augie was standing in the pen with his eyes closed. Go on, he said. Give me more. They have hinged jaws so they can eat things much bigger than them. Like all reptiles, they're cold-blooded. They come from South America. They live in jungles. Hot places. They like hot places? Sure, all reptiles like hot places. They like to sit on a stone or log or bask in the sun and... Shh, Augie hissed at me. I wasn't sure if he wanted me to be quiet or he was doing a snake impression because he was thinking like a snake. As I watched silently, Augie opened up his eyes and then stepped out of the pen. He took a step forward toward my bed. He reached down and with one motion grabbed my sleeping bag and threw it open. There, in a tight ball at the bottom of the bed, was the boa.